Welcome to the Missouri Valley's Mobilizing Voices for Change One Valley podcast. I'm Kelly Burke, and today we're talking Title IX in Missouri Valley Conference women's sports. I'm excited to be joined by a very esteemed panel of guests, including the retired SIU Hall of Fame golf coach, Diane Daugherty, the Missouri Valley Conference's all-time winningest volleyball coach in Northern Iowa, Coach Bobbi Petersen, Illinois State volleyball player, Kendee Hilliard, and Evansville softball student athlete, Makenzie McFeron. I should also mention, Kendee, you're obviously a student athlete as well. So excited to have you all here and looking forward to the conversation. To kick things off, it is the 50-year anniversary this year of Title IX. So let's start there. Diane, let's begin with you. Title IX actually passed when you were in high school. How did it change the course of not only your athletic life, but your future career?
Well, it was everything. It was 72, and I was actually a sophomore in high school when it passed. So I was on the very first girls basketball team. And then by the time, because there was a lot of still things to work out, when I was a senior, I was able to join the boys golf team. And so that 1 year of exposure, I went to college on a scholarship. I then played professional golf, and then I coached. So I think Title IX probably dictated my whole career.
Wow. Bobbi, you were a student athlete and a very good one at Northern Iowa in the late 80s when it was still technically the Gateway Conference. So how did Title IX impact your life, especially as you got to the high school and college level?
Well, I think that the interesting thing is I didn't have sports in elementary at all, except for the t-ball, softball. For some reason, softball was the only thing. And part of that, I think, I was from a small town, so we didn't have a lot of opportunities. And even in junior high, I tell our team, I was a junior high football cheerleader because it was the only thing that we could do. And I had a good voice and I was a good bottom of the pyramid. So that's what I did. It was the only opportunity. And so we did a little bit of basketball in junior high, but not until high school was there anything kind of organized. And I always say, well, our organized was elementary football, we organized that, or after school, we organized our sports, but the technically organized things didn't really happen for me until high school. So even just deciding to play volleyball, because every sport was kind of new at that time for me, especially at a really competitive level. But I'm so incredibly thankful for the opportunity to go to Northern Iowa and to be able to be on a scholarship and then decide that, okay, this is what I want to do for my life, and just seeing what sports I look at it as what Title IX brought is just the opportunities and the avenues for me, in my opinion, just to be the best person that I could be, because the circumstances, the environments, the people that you are involved in through sport just develop you and grow you in so many ways. So, and I have 4 daughters that, love athletics as well, but, it's not just the sport, it's who you become during those sports and the opportunities that you have. So incredibly thankful for those opportunities. And we'll talk more about, not just really understanding the growth of the sport and things that we thought were okay back then, as I'm sure Diane can say, really it's grown a lot. Some of these student athletes would probably be shocked as to how we traveled, how we ate, different things like that. But didn't really think about it because we just loved having the opportunity, I guess, to be able to compete.
Yeah. Kendee and Makenzie, you're current student athletes at your respective schools. And Kendee, let's start with you. I know Leanna Bordner, she's huge on making sure especially the female student athletes, she's the senior women administrator at Illinois State, and she's huge on making sure you all know what Title IX is. So what was your introduction to Title IX?
So my introduction is kind of based solely on Leanna Bordner, just because I have a career opportunity of wanting to be an athletic director post my playing career. So having the opportunity of just talking to her about what she's seen as a student athlete, as a coach, has really honed in on that. I want to continue to break the ceiling and pull people from behind and making sure we're all just leading with our own voice and making sure there's always a chance for another woman or another voice to be presented at the table as well.
Yeah. I want to follow that up on that for a second before we go to Makenzie. You mentioned you want to be an athletic director. I know your goal is to be an athletic director, college athletic director, by the time you're 33, and you're already well on your way. You already have your undergraduate degree, and you're working on your master's in sports management. How do you feel like you've also interned for the athletic department? I believe you interned for Leanna. How can you be an example of change in a college athletic space where, frankly, it's still not the norm to see a female athletic director, let alone a Black female athletic director?
Right. I would just say it's all about the voice and having the opportunity to even be in the room. So I'm always asking our AD, Cal Brennan, or always asking Leanna Gordner if I can just go sit in a meeting, or if I can just be on a call with her. So I'm listening and learning about verbiage that I probably wouldn't always know as a student athlete, and just being able to have the opportunity to sit in a room and like be in a meeting, and even being on this call with amazing pioneer women such as this panel. And it just makes life seem more, let's see, what's the word? Not sure what the word is, but it makes it more worthwhile when you have other people to like bounce ideas off of as well.
Yeah. I love that you have such big goals, and I love that you already are advocating for yourself. That's so important. Makenzie, I'll ask you the same question. What was your introduction to Title IX?
Yeah, so obviously we have the mandatory workshops that everyone has. You have to have, I believe, one per year. So that was kind of my basic introduction, is just the actual logistics of what Title IX was. But then I believe it actually kind of hit me what it was for especially the gender equity portion, whenever I was a student athlete at UE. Just kind of seeing, the things they do to make things equitable on campus, and just to ensure that student athletes are receiving the same opportunities. But then I got to see that flip side, whether it was for the good or for the bad, as being a member of SAC. So obviously we've seen things such as the women's basketball tournament within the NCAA and the gender equity review that's spewed from that. And I do get the privilege to sit on the committee on women's athletics within the NCAA. So we dug a lot into the Kaplan review and the gender equity review that came out of that. So being a part of SAC and having the ability to sit on all three levels has really given me that in-depth perspective of what Title IX is. So my perspective has changed a bit every year that I've been involved as a student athlete. I'd say it's really developed, and I've kind of started to actually understand how the women in athletics, especially, before we were even alive, have paved the way to what athletics is today. For example, like sometimes if we were to see some disparity, it may be like the smallest inconvenience to us, but thinking back to what women's athletics was when it first started, like we've come so far. We still have a long way to go, don't get me wrong, but we've come so far, and I'm so proud of what Title IX has done for women's athletics.
Thank you. That was really well said. Diane, I want to give you a chance to jump in here, because you probably in your coaching career saw the biggest disparities that existed of this group. So what were some of the challenges that you faced, especially early in your coaching career, in relation to not only Title IX, but just women's athletics in general?
Well, I was lucky to be hired by Charlotte West. And if you don't know who Charlotte West is, she's the pioneer of Title IX. She was president of the AIAW when the NCAA took over the AIAW, and really a Title IX expert. So she was my boss from the first second I was hired. Back even before that, when you talk about ways to travel, when I was on a golf team at Stevens College, we were top 10 in the country. We would travel in my coach's station wagon, and our per diem was like $5 a day. So, it was, Title IX was there, but it was still rough. We literally had bake sales and car washes, and we made it to the AIW championship, which is equivalent to the NCAA championship every year. So then I took a little break, played, and then got into coaching in '86. And I think that we were fighting the whole stigma, and we've talked about this a little bit, Kelly, that most people that are genuine athletes and care about athletics, they don't want Title IX to take away from men. we just want the same opportunities given. So not at the expense of a wrestling team being cut or a baseball team being cut, but it's just fair to have opportunities. But I realized that very quickly when I came to SIU to coach golf. Number one, it was a NIP, a non-income producing sport. So if I wanted a budget, I was going to have to go raise it. So I took on fundraising, which I would say was almost a bigger part of my job than coaching, because I wanted my kids to have an opportunity to wear nice stuff, to travel to Hawaii, fly, not just be stuck in our little budget world. So that was unique. I think that it wasn't given to us at all, because it's just, it just has to be equal to opportunity for men and women, not sports, specific. Yeah. So we had challenges as a female coach and coach of a female sport, even though, I had one of the leading Title IX representatives here, and she made sure everything was fair. It was still fundraising was probably my number one thing. Yeah, which is crazy.
I should add too that, you were still fundraising a lot of money at the end of your career, even.
Oh, we raised our budget. We basically fundraised our budget, and what the university gave us was a like little icing on the cake.
Bobbi, you have a very unique perspective in that not only were you a student athlete at UNI, obviously you've been the longtime volleyball coach there. So what have been, from even when you were dating back to being a student athlete to now as the longtime coach, what have been some of the unique challenges you've dealt with in both roles that your male counterparts necessarily haven't had to deal with?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, some of the things when I was a student athlete, I think you just really don't realize how different they are. One of the biggest things that I look back now, strength and conditioning is such a big thing now. Back when I played, like literally they just told us, go to the weight room when you have time, jump in with a football team if you can. So, I had friends that were offensive linemen. So I'm doing an offensive lineman lift, which is not good for volleyball. So, it just like those things where, and I keep thinking, if we would have had strength and conditioning, and even our male counterparts back then had more specific strength and conditioning coach that actually worked with them. But we just go to the weight room and lift. And, we joke a lot about the travel and the food. And, we made the best of it because, again, it was so thankful for the opportunity just to compete. But I think it's, like Diane said, with the fundraising, it's the strong women that understand the differences. So we're going to fight and we're going to fundraise so that our student athletes have the opportunities, because, even here at Northern Iowa, that we do that still, in this day and age, we're fundraising to be able to do things that are, not even just equal to the male counterparts, but other female sports across the country, in our own sport. So, but I think what happens is, you have some success, and then you have success, but you don't necessarily get more things or get more resources because you have that success with what you have. So it's kind of it's a tough battle, because, the more you fight for it and fundraise, then you're not necessarily going to maybe get some of those advances just because you're doing well with it. But like Diane, we want the best for our student athletes, and we're going to do what we can to give them the best opportunities. And even some of them that we can't do or can't get to, we're going to make the best of that situation. We're never going to, feel sorry for ourselves or bad about it. We're going to take what we have and we're going to go work with it. So I think just the challenges of being able to, not just, again, the gender differences, but just within your own sport, being able to, because we're all competitive, we all want to have the resources to be successful, and we're going to fight hard to get them, and our student athletes deserve it, and we're going to keep fighting hard. So I think that will continue to be a constant battle. But again, I just think that the Title IX is just so much about the opportunities, and we still have a long way to go with some of the other things. Like you said, with the women's basketball, I think that was one of the biggest examples of, where we're still at with resources and opportunities, like you said, becoming a college AD, so some of those things, I think we still have a long way to go. Love the opportunities to just be able to participate that have come, look at the young kids and what they're able to do right now. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Makenzie, you mentioned, you're the national SAC representative for the Missouri Valley Conference. And for people that don't know what that is, it's the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. And actually, when I was at Arizona State, I was a SAC representative at Arizona State as a student athlete in college. How have you used that role to not only advocate for the conference and for Evansville, but your own experience and your teammates' experiences as a female student athlete?
Yeah, so SAC, if you would have told me freshman year on my first day at campus that I would have this opportunity, I would have never believed you. I mean, there's around 175,000 student athletes within Division I, and getting that opportunity to sit at the table with 32 other student athletes that represent Division I, it's a blessing. And whenever we do get into those rooms and have those opportunities, I'm not just advocating obviously for the Missouri Valley or just for the University of Evansville, it's for all student athletes. So I do keep in mind, obviously, the female aspect while I am there. We try to keep a balance between how many female representatives we have, male representatives, and we try to keep a diverse panel. But it is interesting to see throughout the different topics we talk about, like some topics we're talking about right now are, for example, like transgender participation, and we're talking about like transformations within the NCAA, and just making sure that our voice is heard. So that's obviously SAC's purpose, is enhancing the student athlete experience. So making sure that whenever we do get those opportunities to sit in those rooms, such as in other subcommittees within the NCAA, or just even at the conference or institutional level, that our voice is being heard. Even if we do, if we're on Zoom and we unmute ourselves so that we can speak up in a room full of ADs, SWAs, or whoever it may be on the call, even if we do speak up and maybe we aren't heard, that we speak up again. Because if there's just one of us in a room, we're representing, for example, we could be representing those 175,000 student athletes. And if they were in that seat, they would want that opportunity as well. So that's what keeps me motivated, is I know that anyone would want the opportunity that I'm presenting with. So I want to make the most of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kendee, you're the Illinois State SAC president there on campus. And as I mentioned, you're involved in so many different things on campus, including, one that really stands out to me is the Redbirds for Change. And that's a student athlete group looking to improve advocacy for Black athletes on campus. How have you used your role to advocate for some of the unique challenges you face as a Black female student athlete? And if you could touch on what some of those challenges are, because I think it's really important that everybody understand, some of the things you deal with are different than the other female student athletes out there.
Yes, ma'am. And just for a slight correction, Redbirds for Change is not solely dedicated just to Black student athletes.
Oh, okay. Okay,
yeah.
Good to know. Thank you for telling me.
It's so Redbirds for Change is all about making sure we're having an inclusive environment and making sure every student athlete has a sense of belonging and making sure their voice is heard based on their intersectionality. So I've been really blessed to be a part of that group, and we actually had a meeting yesterday just determining like how we want to change the culture of Redbird athletics. And like I know we mentioned in our meeting that we just don't want a situation to where a women's golf player walks by a volleyball player and they don't say hi. We want that culture to where I know someone from the tennis team, I know someone from the baseball team as well. So we're just always trying to build a story and trying to build a connection between different sports. So we do have that opportunity to make the culture better. And then to follow up on your second part of your question, as a Black female athlete, I kind of have a perspective of like just mainly being from out of state. I'm from Texas. So like the things I deal with and how I struggle is just totally different than another female student athlete who is also Black. So just making sure I have those conversations with her or like other Black student athletes and other student athletes in general has been a huge saving grace. And the challenge I mainly have is just making sure that I'm not just representing myself, I'm representing them as well. So always providing a voice and an opportunity to make sure the job gets done.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Bobbi, besides being the all-time winningest Missouri Valley Conference volleyball coach and arguably UNI's best volleyball player in history, you're also a mom, as you mentioned, to 4 daughters, 2 sets of twins. Your older girls, Bailey and Sydney, they both play college volleyball. Bailey's actually on your team, and then Sydney stars at UT. I know she's won a national title with them. What are some of the biggest changes you see in opportunities for young women from when you were a student athlete to now as a coach and mom to 2 female college athletes?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is when you talk about resources and different things, the 2 differences between my daughter that's here at UNI and then my daughter that was at the University of Texas, incredibly different opportunities as far as resources, but both having, awesome opportunities to be able to compete at, the highest level. So I think that's one of the things. And I look at, and I don't know the resources for male sports at Texas, which I know are crazy, but the improvement and the things that they are able to do with their student athletes that I've been talked with Sydney about. I mean, you to not do well, it would be partly on your responsibility, because the resources they have for academics and just being able to be the best athlete that you can be, not just a volleyball player, but into, the resources for mental health. And, just there's so many things that all of those student athletes have the capability of being able to use and take advantage of. So it's so awesome to see that. And, I don't know, when that expansion happened for those universities. And I know, we're still, here at UNI, we're getting better at all of those things. It's definitely a different level than at Texas, but just being able to see some of the things that, as a student athlete here at UNI that I wasn't able to have, and the opportunities that my daughter is now able to have because of, and it is Title IX, but it's also so many women that have fought, and not just women, people that have fought to make this happen. Obviously it takes more than just that, but it's all, like I look at Diane and I know she's a fighter, and, it excites me I know so many people in this world that have come and gone and done such great things to provide these opportunities for these amazing young women that are going to continue to fight for opportunities for, the next generation. So I love listening to Kendee and Makenzie, because it's like, okay, we're going to be okay. We have people that will continue to fight for it. And it's so fun. But I am incredibly thankful that my daughters, and if they didn't want to do sports, it's fine too. But the fact that they have wanted to, and they've had those opportunities to be able to do that, I'm definitely blessed for that opportunity.
Yeah. Diane, what are a few things that you wish today's female student athlete understands about Title IX and the importance of their role going forward in it? And I'm sure you can speak directly to Makenzie and Kendee.
Well, I'm so impressed with these 2, and obviously Bobbi, as Bobbi said, we're in good hands, because what articulate, bright young student athletes. And that I miss that at coaching. I'm around our teams here a little bit, but not, it's really rewarding for me to hear this. But I think that, phrase that question to me again.
Yeah. What are a few things you wish today's female
what they knew.
Yeah. What they need to understand about Title IX, and more importantly, the importance of their role going forward in it.
Well, I think that, I'm so glad that schools are, mandatory, making hopefully all athletes, not just female athletes, learn about the history of Title IX. And it wasn't even for, athletics. It was for med school and law school entries. We just happened to tag along, and that's what Title IX was all about in the beginning. So the history and what people fought for, and really, Charlotte West, the people that were real pioneers fighting for opportunity, those people we owe so much gratitude to. And I hope that we don't lose that. I hope that, I don't know whether your student athletes have ever even heard of Charlotte West, but, I hope that they do. I hope that they learn about the people that created the opportunities that they are experiencing. We used to just be so glad to have the opportunity. And I'm always telling our student athletes, be fearful of the entitlement. I thought it was great that Joe Burrow tweeted out, go do your workout. Don't tweet your workout, or don't TikTok your workout. Just work in silence. And I think that parallels a lot with, our women are fighting in silence. It's, the opportunities. And I think it was good that what happened with the NCAA basketball last year, that really, people couldn't believe it, but we live it. So we know that it happens all the time, the disparities. But I think that was good that awareness was brought to the forefront, that there still are major disparities in men's and women's athletics opportunities, advantages, weight rooms, number of coaches. And so it's a fight. We've come a long way, but we still have a ways to go.
Mm-hmm. Makenzie and Kendee, I'll pose this question to you, just because of your work on SAC and other organizations that you're involved in. What do you view as some of the challenges that you have going forward, not only in relation to Title IX, but just women's sports in general, and what you want to pursue, Kendee, and especially in your case, just what you want to pursue as your career?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first.
Sure.
So I think the biggest challenge I see right now kind of goes along with what Diane just said, is like TV exposure. So I think Bobbi can attest to this as well, but it's kind of like pulling teeth just to get the first and second rounds of the women's volleyball tournament on television. And I think with the numbers that skyrocketed this year with record-breaking appearances and just TV standings and TV numbers was like super important. And I think it just showed how volleyball has impacted not only myself, but like even just the fan base. My brother and I talk about this all the time. He's like solely invested in it now. Like he wouldn't even watch volleyball before I even started playing. And now he's like rooting for different people. He's like tweeting out who's like the best players, who's like leading statistically across the NCAA. So I think that's been really a challenge that I've loved seeing come to the forefront.
Awesome. Makenzie?
Yeah, kind of adding on to that, I feel like women are always against a scale. For there to be buy-in for a women's team, I feel like we always have to be a good team or prove ourselves. There's always something to prove. And I feel like that can be applied to any situation, especially like in the workplace or in your professional careers as well. There's always something to prove. And until you prove yourself or show that you're a successful winning team or person, then they finally get that buy-in and that support. And sometimes I feel like men just automatically are on that scale and get that automatic buy-in. So I feel like that's something we could continue to work towards, is not just checking off a box that, women are equitable to men and we're having that gender equity, it's there, but making sure that no matter what, women and men are equal, and that they aren't put up against a scale. Like, oh, they are successful. They went 7-0, and now they're a good team, so we can all support them and have that buy-in. We should all have that from the beginning, for both men and women. So that's kind of something that I've seen is still a challenge.
Yeah. Kendee, I want to go back to something you just said. You talked about TV viewership, and exposure for women's sports is so important, as we've seen over the last year or two. And I'm glad you brought up the TV numbers. We've obviously seen it with volleyball, the record viewership. And we've seen it even more so with college softball. Yeah. Makenzie, this year, I was thrilled to see that so many college softball games are going to be on like main ESPN and even ABC at times. And so it's this whole idea, if you give women's sports a primetime platform and exposure, the viewership is there. People want to watch it. We're just not given the opportunity. So I'll pose this question to all four of you. And Diane, I know you and I have talked about this even with LPGA golf and just golf out there too, that in relation to the coverage they get compared to what the PGA gets. What still needs to happen for women's sports to be showcased more? not only on TV, but even I look at when I'm covering all of you, your sports teams, and I'm calling your volleyball games at Illinois State or Northern Iowa, or I'm calling, softball game for the Valley. I have a really hard time, I'll be honest with you, when I'm doing research. There's not a lot of, virtually no articles in the local newspapers. I get a lot of my information from talking to coaches and from the game notes, but it's hard to find any coverage on any of the women's sports. So, Bobbi, let's start with you on this question.
Yeah, well, and I was thinking just of something with what Makenzie said, like just even the buy-in, we need to get to a point where we're not doing these things because it's Title IX and we have to do them. I think of, oh, well, we need to get a female strength coach because, we need to do it because it's the right thing to do because women deserve that. It's the same thing with everything. So if it's just well, this is what we're supposed to do because we have to meet Title IX, I get that, but yet where's the buy-in? It's like what happened with the men's and women's basketball. How is that even a thing? Like, why is that even a thing? So just trying to get more buy-in and belief in what we're doing, not just doing it because we're supposed to do it. And I know it has to start somewhere, so just getting more opportunities for coverage and, demanding some more of those things. But until you get people that really believe in why they're doing it, like all of what we do, it's hard because it feels like a Band-Aid fix. It feels like we're doing it just because we have to, as opposed to it is the right thing to do. Women deserve this. We are strong, so just I like that word, Makenzie, with that, buy-in from everyone as opposed to just doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Makenzie.
Yeah, I would just add on to what she was saying. Another word to buy-in, I would just say support. I think support starts at the lowest internal level. That campus support, I think, is the most imperative thing. Once your campus supports you and your teams and coaches, and I think it does, obviously funding does play a large part. And since we are all mid-majors, funding isn't the most optimal thing right now, but just helping in any way you can to make sure that we are giving those opportunities, not kind of like you were saying, Bobbi, not to just check off a box. I think that's something very important to me is sometimes I feel like, okay, we are doing this thing just to make sure it's equitable. It's like, where's the purpose behind it? Is it actually genuine, or are you just doing it because you have to fall in line with things? I think we need to start getting to the point of we want to instead of we have to. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah. Kendee.
I think it just starts with kind of what Makenzie just said at the internal level. I think having the humble conversations with male student athletes starts like, you need to support us just as much as we support you at your game. So making sure we hone in that like we're all one, but like you can do your part to support your counterparts as well.
Diane.
Well, I think that I really think that we have power, especially our alumni. When these two young ladies graduate, and I would try to instill in my student athletes, pay back the opportunity that you got. So that starts with giving. Most husbands control who they give to. And so, you get married, you have kids, you don't really pay any attention to that. So get invested in paying back, get invested in donating back to your team or your school. Don't just let your husband, give the donations to where he wants. And secondly, we have buying power. So that is sponsorship dollars. Just like volleyball got on TV, people watched it for the first time and got invested in it. But somebody has to sponsor that to get on TV in the first place. So we have power. We have power to tell Procter & Gamble to show more women's sports on TV. I don't really know how to do it, but I do know that we have power. And, the LPGA has an all-time viewership right now because they're getting more and more sponsors. They're not just showing on the Golf Channel at 10 o'clock at night. They're getting prime hours. So I think that we need to, student athletes do all they can, and obviously they represent. And but when they graduate, they need to still assume that responsibility and that power to one, pay it back, and two, to pressure companies into sponsorship.
Diane, you and I were talking the other week, actually, just in an everyday conversation, we were talking about name, image, likeness. And I'm curious to get Makenzie and Kendee's thoughts on this, but Diane, from your perspective, NIL, it was not a thing. It was not on the radar in any sense of the word when you were coaching.
Right.
How do you feel like name, image, likeness maybe affects Title IX going forward, or how can it positively affect women's sports going forward? And I'll just leave this one example. Paige Beckers, who's a star player for UConn women's basketball team, and she's injured right now, but I mean, she signed the biggest NIL contract of anybody in the college athletics landscape. And she has one of the biggest followings on social media too. So it kind of just goes to show the power that these female student athletes can have going forward.
Well, social media, I didn't have to really deal with that much social media because I retired in 11. So the fear that I have on that, and I know that a lot of the money that student athletes are getting is coming from TikTok and different things. So that doesn't affect, I think, the core base of sponsorships like I'm fearful. I know we don't live in a big area. This is Carbondale, Illinois. We only have so many dollars to draw in to sponsor our whole athletic department, or to sponsor engineering and everything else. So if a particular car dealership wants to get our quarterback of our football team, then those dollars are going to go to the quarterback of the football team, not to the athletic department, which will trickle down affecting women. So, the social media dollars, I'm all about that. Even though I don't think it's necessary, I think that, this is a whole different show when, we have millions invested in coaching salaries and all that. It's gotten way out of proportion, in my view. But, and the cost of an education, the value of an education, to me, is enough. But, we're going the different direction. And I'm glad to see female athletes are taking advantage and making some money. But I just am very fearful that it's going to cost the bottom line of the athletic department.
Makenzie and Kendee, I'd love to get your take. NIL, it wasn't a thing when I was a student athlete at Arizona State. So I'm always interested to learn more about it and what have been your unique experiences with NIL, both positive and negative. And Kendee, let's start with you.
So I actually have a positive experience of having, I organize a podcast. So I kind of have a positive experience of gaining money and using that opportunity to make sure my voice is heard. And talking to college executives across the nation has truly been an inspiration and just something to think about towards the future in my career path. So that's been a positive. And then a negative experience, I would say, is just not knowing how to market myself as like a mid-major student athlete, because we're in a sweet spot of that we can get some that trickle down from a Power 5 and still get a little bit more conversation than conferences who are not in a Power 5 and who are mid-major like us. So that's been kind of the negative experience of wanting to broadcast yourself and wanting to market yourself, but you're not sure how you want to and what companies would make sure you're in line with their values and their values are in line with yours.
Makenzie.
Yeah, so I haven't personally utilized NIL. So I've kind of seen it from the outside and seen both the positives and the negatives. So like Kendee was saying, I think it does impact each different quote unquote level of Division I differently, if you were to say. So, I mean, your Power 5s, they are probably more likely to get more use of the NIL and the larger benefits from it and the larger deals. But then I do like the creation of NIL. It gives you that opportunity. You can, if you want to create your own athletic brand, you can do something like that. You can have your own podcast and benefit financially from that. I really do like that opportunity because we don't get the opportunity to financially gain very often. I mean, part-time job, I mean, it's not really in the cards. I mean, for some people, but with our busy schedules, it's just not really feasible all the time. But then the drawbacks that I do see from NIL is the improper usage. So while it's great and student athletes just see the dollar sign sometimes. I don't always know that they see what you can't do with NIL. And like, I'm very fortunate that I get to sit in the meetings going through like the logistics of the do's and don'ts. But I think NIL education is still not fully where it needs to be. I mean, we've talked a lot about that at the national SAC level, but it's hard to educate on the national level because each state has their own rules and regulations. And are you actually reporting it to your institution and things like that? So I do think it is a little bit more beneficial than it is negative, but I do think it could get some student athletes in trouble if they were to use it in the wrong way.
Bobbi, the NIL, it's newer to you as a coach. So what has been your experience with your own team and just being a part of the athletic department there at UNI?
Yeah, I think that I have views similar to Diane with some of the things. And I think part of that's the area that we're in as well. You know, we have very few dollars and we're always struggling even to get a good amount of dollars just for our athletic department in general. And I do think that some of those dollars will eventually go to some of our student athletes directly. So I do think that's a tough side of it. You know, when I listen to Kendee and talk about the podcast that she's able to develop, what an awesome opportunity. I think there are some great opportunities. And I think the hard part is it's just kind of thrown out there right now. And like Makenzie said, there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to a lot of things. And I think we need to do that to make it a really beneficial thing for everyone. But yeah, and we talk about entitlement a lot. I think it, that's going to be even more of a thing, I think, in certain situations. Again, it's not every situation, because like I said, Kennee's opportunity, and we have a couple of student athletes that do some things that I think are really beneficial to their growth just as a person. So, I think there's so many different, avenues and spectrums of this that there are definitely pros and cons for sure. Still very new though.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm still trying to grasp everything with it too, just being able to talk to the student athletes and coaches to kind of get the full picture of it. Kendee, I should have asked you, the podcast you mentioned, what is it so we can check it out?
Yes, ma'am, sure. The podcast I'm a guest host on is called One Question Leadership Podcast. So
awesome.
Tune into all my interviews with high-level executives. A little pub right there.
Right. And is it iTunes on all the podcast platforms? Is that where we can find it all?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, before I get closing comments from each of you, I do want to open up to each of you if you have any questions for each other, because obviously different generations. So Diane and Bobbi, if you have any questions for Kendee and for Makenzie, and Kendee and Makenzie, if you have any questions for Bobbi or Diane, any burning things that you all are wondering.
I think my question would just be for you two, you're amazing young women. It's very obvious to see that, but, as a college coach, what things do you think we as coaches can do to help you, if that makes sense?
I kind of have an answer to that. So I would just say continued support. I mean, I feel like you coaches do everything. From my perspective, I feel like you already are supporting us, but just continued support, I guess. Having your coaches meetings and just amplifying kind of what we're saying. So obviously our voice can only go so far. We try as best as we can to make sure our voice is heard, but just maybe that second level of amplification and that support behind our voice. So if we are pushing for maybe, I know another hot topic is mental health right now. So just anything that we're trying to push for and maybe get through to the next level, you're kind of that middle ground. So I feel like that support behind us.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the biggest part or the biggest component that sometimes coaches miss is having those conversations outside of just being a player. So you have those conversations of being a person, being a student, and just making sure your players are right with outside of the court in our sense. But that's the biggest component to making sure to ensure success moving forward as well.
Well, I think we're in great hands with what I'm seeing here. But I do think that role models are really important for females. And, with you two being role models, we're in good shape. But think about, I know you have grand vision and, both of you and where you're going to go, and an athletic director, which is important. When you're an athletic director, hire female coaches. I think females need female role models. And as salaries are getting higher, we're getting more and more, I don't even know the latest statistics, but it's scary. When back in the day, we used to have 90% of female coaches coaching female teams. And now I think it's less than 50. So I think that role models are very important. You guys being terrific role models, but don't forget that when you graduate and get in the big world, coaching's it's a nice job, very rewarding.
And I love that you said that, because I actually have had the privilege to mainly be only coached by women. So that's been a really great experience. And I would like to see my student athletes, when I become an athletic director, have that opportunity to embrace the grind from a female leader and a female mentor. So I love that you said that. And I also think that having these conversations with people who have retired like yourself, and people who have embraced that grind of Title IX and coached and played, those conversations have always been like my favorite, because we talk about that sense of entitlement of like the little things I bark about or the little things I'm asking for. You like set the platform and the foundation for that. And you're probably just looking at me like, why are we complaining about this when you should be complaining about this?
Not at all. I'm very impressed by all of you.
So I just absolutely love those conversations. And I want more of these conversations that get the opportunity to talk to women like you who've set the foundation for us.
Well, a lot more women way ahead of me, but I just kind of carried the water for a little bit.
I have a question for the both of you. So I'm getting after this semester, I'll have my bachelor's and master's in health services administration, but all my work within athletics, and especially through SAC, really makes me question if I do want to go into athletics. So for people like me who have been impacted, their entire lives by athletics, and maybe are debating about going into a career within athletics, are there certain roles outside of coaching that you see having the most impact being a woman in leadership?
So Makenzie, are you talking within sport?
Yeah, within like college athletics, okay. Like are specific roles?
So I think she's asking like if she wouldn't be a coach, but some other role in athletics, a non-coach role.
Yeah. And I think, part of it depends on what your strengths are and what you enjoy doing, but there are, lots of opportunities just within administratively. I look at like what, if you're like somebody that still likes to have that, because some of the roles you don't get the same kind of connection with the student athletes, I would say, but we have like the people that work with our academic advisors specifically for athletics still have a pretty big role in not just the academic side, kind of like for us as coaches, it's not just about the sport, it's the entire experience. And so there's roles definitely like that. And I think that depends definitely on the department and the size of the school, because our academic advisors are very involved in a lot of different areas. So that is, I don't know if you're looking for something where you'd be more involved with the student athlete as well as just athletics, if that makes sense. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, honestly, I'm open to anything. And I know there's a lot of my colleagues as well that are kind of where I am right now. And so I was kind of feeling it out for them too.
Yeah. I think any involvement you can get, coaching, you go on and you have a career in advertising and not even in athletics. You coach a little league team. That's important. That's a role model. That gets kids involved. If they have a good experience in little league and they're not bullying and they're somewhat successful, but I'm not into that everybody gets a trophy thing.
Me either.
But you can make a big difference in a young person's life when they're 6 years old. That will, impact them the rest of their life. So you just have to seize the opportunity.
I think that's one of the most rewarding things too. I'm sure you feel that way, Diane, too. So like if, like you said, have a completely different career, but they have to find a way to be involved in coaching, whatever that is, and their desire to want to do that, that's rewarding and awesome for sure.
Definitely.
Well, I want to give you each an opportunity to make a closing comment. And Diane, you'll appreciate. So Bella, my chocolate lab, is sitting here staring me down. That's also how I know this conversation is winding down, because she's staring at me, looking, saying,
It's walk time.
Mom, when are we going for our second walk of the morning here?
Yes.
Diane, I'll start with you. Just any closing comments or thoughts you have about Title IX, Missouri Valley Conference women's sports, or anything related to the topic?
Well, I think the Valley does a great job. You know, it's been 10 or 11 years since I've been actively involved, but it's rewarding for me to be on a panel, to get to say whatever I want to say. And I appreciate that for Mike and Kelly for the invitation. I'm very encouraged from what I'm hearing and our state that we're in, but it is a fight. And I'm not sure that we'll ever have the same real opportunities, the same budgets, but even though 50 years is a long time, it doesn't seem that long ago to me, you know, that we were just like playing only softball, as you said, or my opportunity was GAA, Girls Athletic Association. That was our only opportunity. And now, you know, young ladies are having opportunities from the time they're born on up. So I'm very excited about that. And I think that the future is bright, but we've got to remember that we've got to put our time and efforts in.
Bobbi.
Yeah, well, I agree with everything with Diane, and just super blessed to be on this panel with amazing people. And I think the thing that I would just like to emphasize is, you know, obviously I've made sports my career, but I have just an intense belief that the opportunity to be a part of athletics, no matter, you know, if it's just in high school, you know, whatever age, helps shape who you are. And I have this conversation, you know, my 4 daughters all, you know, we go to a small school, they play all the sports, they are very involved, but every day, you know, I'm talking to them about you're not the sport, you are the person you're becoming because you have the opportunity to be involved in this sport. So, you know, yes, keep coaching, you know, be the role model, but you can be a role model in so many other ways outside of sport. And that's my thing, is the sports have allowed you to have all these awesome opportunities and be in circumstances and build relationships that you should be taking with you in all aspects of your life. So Kendee, I know you want to continue in sports, and Makenzie, if you do or you don't, whatever it is that's your passion, take everything that the opportunity that sports has allowed you to be a part of with you, to be able to, you know, have a platform in whatever that is in life. You know, we're talking about sports, but it's for everything in life. You know, women can do anything, you know, it doesn't have to just be about sports. So just making sure that we are using that for all aspects of our life.
Makenzie.
I first want to thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this amazing panel. I've had, this almost sparks another light inside me, and I know I only have a few months left as being a student athlete, but this is just the extra push to get through and to keep working for student athletes. But I think just continuing that, even though we have made these few changes and this 50 years we've worked so hard to get to this point, to know that there's never going to be the perfect, or there's never going to be the end, but we need to keep working for change and advocating for change. So even whenever we set that one goal and we achieve it, we need to set more goals and continue to reach and strive for those. So I think transformation, although short-term goals and achievements such as, I know we talked about the women's basketball tournament earlier. So yes, while things like that and the gender review have been completed, we still need to continue to work further and never be complacent, I guess is my.
Kendee.
First of all, I would just like to thank everyone on the call, and thank you for this opportunity of being a representative for Redbird Athletics. And the thing I would like to leave us is like lighting someone else's candle will not dim your own. So making sure we're providing a voice for the next lady or the next woman who's coming in after us, and just allowing them to have the same opportunity you have, or even bringing a chair to the table that you sit at. That, I think that's going to be the driving force for moving forward and building a better culture and just creating more opportunities for women in sports in general. So that's all I have.
No, I love it. It's very well said. And I always love to tell people there's a seat at the table for every woman. So I just want to take a moment to personally thank all four of you. You all four are just so inspiring. Kendee and Makenzie, I just so unbelievably impressed with both of you and the positive things you're doing, not only for your own lives and own careers, but other student athletes, other females at your school, and also representing your institution. So keep doing the things you're doing. Kendee, I'm at Illinois State a lot, so let's connect, let's grab lunch. Makenzie, I'm almost positive I have one of your softball series against Illinois State, so let's connect when you play them. Bobbi, I always appreciate you and our chats on the phone and the opportunity to cover your team. And Diane, you know how I feel about you. You're one of my
love you.
One of my favorite people in the world. So this is such a joy. I mean, I could talk to you all for 3 hours, but I know we all have busy lives. And Makenzie, you got to get on the road because you're going to go down to Alabama here. So just thank you so much for taking the time today. And I appreciate you all and all that you do.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.